So, husband and I, 15 years married, bought an investment property 10 years ago along with our in-laws. We split it roughly 60-40 between us and the in-laws in terms of down payment, and resulting mortgage has been on us alone. We only have a few years left, as we've paid relatively high rates throughout the short term. We bought this property at a time when the market dipped and we thought it'd be a good investment. In-laws wanted in as well, and we combined assets to purchase what we thought would skyrocket in value later on. We were right, and our property has nearly doubled in value now, although it is still a relatively small place. Well, 4 or 5 years ago, my sister-in-law and her boyfriend were looking for a place to rent. In-laws suggested our house, and sister-in-law was interested, and we eventually gave her a very, very good rate, as she earns a lot less than in-laws or husband and I. She's been a very good tenant, always paid rent on time, fair with maintenance requests, etc. over the years. So recently, in-laws sat husband and I down to talk about the property. They want to basically transfer their stake to sister-in-law and her fiancé as an upcoming wedding present. And they want to ask us to do the same, which would essentially make the house a big present for sister-in-law. Their reasoning is that sister-in-law and her fiancé's future earning power will be much, much less than husband and I or them, and they want to make sure their future is taken care of to an extent. Based on sister-in-law fiancé's own earnings, it would take them decades to buy their own place. Sister-in-law has a medium, low-paying job, but her fiancé is legally disabled and relies on disability welfare. So I completely get where in-laws are coming from. Husband is way more lenient and he's willing to take the loss, but I'm conflicted. It's true that we earn a lot more than his sister, and we're genuinely not hurting for money. But the house is still a huge asset that I've always assumed would yield us huge turnover one day. We own the house we're living in right now, but I've always imagined selling the investment property and using our share of cash to add to a down payment on a larger home that we'd like to buy in the next 5 years as our kids get older. There are literally a million things we could do with the money to improve our lives, but I guess we don't technically need it. However, my husband believes we should just let this one go, as he is also concerned for his sister and wants her to be set up for life. I guess a selfish part of me also feels like it's too large of a gift. I'd be happy to let them live there on discounted rent, but gifting the property as a whole seems too much. Part of me also resents the fact that I had used my own savings from before I got married to put into the house, and that was money I could have used to do so many things in my 20s. Instead, I sucked it up and saved money because I imagined it would eventually pay off. How should I approach this with my husband? Do I have a right to say no to this? Or should I just let this one go like he said? Am I being selfish or stingy? Wow, that seems awfully excessive. I mean, all in-laws have done is contribute 40% of the down payment, and you guys have done the rest. And considering it's now worth double, it seems that you're talking about a lot of money. In-laws transferring their stake in it, well, it seems to me their stake is only the money they put down for the down payment, which was probably only 20% of the cost of the house, plus whatever calculations you would use to add on additional gains earned. Surely they were not expecting to receive 40% of the future selling price. I don't think it matters that you don't desperately need the money. You've had it earmarked to help pay for a larger home. You're already helping them by renting it out at a great rate, as I assume you could have been getting more money in rent from another tenant at a market price. Frankly, I think the in-laws are concerned with sister-in-law being taken care of in the future. That's what inheritances are for. To tell you the truth, I think that them asking you to do this was pretty out of line. No, you're not being stingy. That's an enormous wedding gift. You don't buy someone nearly 2/3 of a house as a wedding gift. If I were you, I'd be feeling ticked by your sister-in-law's family. They're being totally unreasonable. Like you said, you didn't put up all that money to see it disappear in a flash. You could have done millions of things with it. You could have invested it. You could have gone on holidays. You put money into that house under the assumption it would be at least half yours. Your husband needs to understand that and should be supporting you fully here when you say that it's not on. He needs to grow a backbone. Stand your ground. They can stay there on discounted rent and you are happy to source another wedding present. My husband, of almost 2 years, doesn't get sick often, but when he does, he goes to his mom's house. He stays there anywhere from a couple of hours to a few days. The longest he stayed with her was for a week last winter when he had the flu. We're both sick with a cold right now, and he sent a text telling me he was going straight to his mom's after work today. I asked why, and he said he needs to rest and will need help, but he doesn't want to burden me. He did this yesterday too. We have a 5-month-old daughter who is also sick. She's extra clingy right now, and she isn't sleeping well either. Last night, she could only sleep for about an hour at a time because she kept sneezing herself awake. This may sound selfish, but I'm sick too. I'm really tired today, and my entire body aches. I can barely breathe. I can't take medication because I'm breastfeeding. I'm just miserable and really need a break. I appreciate that my husband works, but even he gets breaks during the day. I've been dealing with a sick, teething, whiny baby and keeping up with the house while being just as sick as him with very little sleep and no breaks. Meanwhile, he gets waited on, sleeps soundly, and enjoys hours to himself to rest, play video games, and watch TV at his mom's house. I'm feeling a little resentful, to be honest. I called my sister to ask if she could stop by tonight so I could shower and maybe take a nap. She can't help today and asked about my husband. When I said he's going to his mom's and explained why, she seemed a little surprised. She said it's really weird of him to do that, especially now that we have a child. I hadn't put much thought into it before now. It's just the way he's handled being sick. So, what do you think? Is my husband's way of handling this weird? If you think it is, what am I supposed to do? I'm afraid talking to him will make me seem ungrateful, that he supports us, and possibly controlling. I get that he works outside the house and needs more sleep. I'm fine doing most of the childcare, despite being sick, but I do need sleep and some kind of a break. Your help would be appreciated. Thank you. Edit. Mother-in-law brought sister-in-law, 14 female, over to help me. Our daughter does take a bottle, so sister-in-law sat with her and fed her while I napped for about 2 hours. I feel better now that I've had some sleep. Have you told your husband that you need him at home to help with the family? Him getting sick doesn't mean that he can just drop his responsibilities as a dad. Just because he's the breadwinner in your family doesn't mean he can skirt taking care of you and your daughter. This is a whole new level of man-cold. Like he's attempting to one-up you on what is likely the same virus, while he gets pampered, and you take care of a sick 5-month-old on your own while also being sick. Oh, hell no. That child needs a reality check. I'm pretty disgusted. Looking back, my family emotionally guilted me into this. But at the time, I was happy to help my sister. They paid me $3,000. I was a broke teenager, and it felt like a lot of money back then. I've enjoyed a close relationship with my nephew, and the plan was vaguely to tell him when he's old enough to understand. I've really been struggling to keep this secret. He's a very bright young man, emotionally mature for his age, and he's going to be 14 this year. I know that when I was his age, I would have understood and would have wanted to know something like this. A few days ago, I contacted my sister and told her how I felt. She questioned whether he ever needs to know this secret at all. My parents said it's our issue to figure out. Sister says I'm being selfish for pressuring her. I'm trying to be diplomatic. I know it's not my place to say anything, but I've been struggling with a lot of feelings lately. For one, I feel like I was exploited at a young age. 2, I feel a sort of paternal instinct to tell him that I can't really describe. Maybe that's irrational. And 3, I feel like continuing to participate in this implicit lie may backfire on my relationship with my nephew. It was one thing when he was 5, but kids his age are old enough to understand, and I think my family is doing him a disservice. Commercial DNA tests are a thing. They're fooling themselves if they think this will be a secret forever. And it's not as though his parents will cease to be his parents. How can I convince my sister, brother-in-law, to be honest? Am I even in the right for feeling this way? I think you need to seriously evaluate who you are doing this for. If your motivation is to satisfy your needs, it's not the right one to go into this with. Ultimately, you consented to the creation of your nephew, son, and if you want to be the parent figure, he deserves then that it starts with you asking yourself what's best for him. Now that being said, that doesn't mean I don't think you should tell him. I think he needs to know, but I also don't think it's healthy to do it behind his parents' back. That creates a rift between him and them, and this is going to be a potentially traumatic realization. He will find out one day, and if his parents love him, they will need to come to terms with the fact that the best place is for him to learn it from the 3 of you. That way, you can let him know you all love him and that this doesn't have to change who he is as a person. It's just a piece of his genetic history. Pediatric therapist here. This is a tricky one. Previous posters are absolutely correct that he should have been told from the get-go. With that being said, I would see if your sister would attend family therapy with you to identify a solution. This is a delicate situation, and having help will only benefit everyone involved. This will be huge news to your son, and a 14-year-old's brain is all over the place to begin with. I would wait for now, until he is a little older. In the meantime, your sister needs to understand how absolutely painful this is for you. Your sister wouldn't have this child without you. Worst case scenario where she never agrees to tell him. Everything eventually comes out in the wash. He will likely find out one day. Update. First of all, since there was a lot of misunderstanding, I need to reiterate, my sister and brother-in-law got pregnant via IVF with an embryo that used my sperm and a donor egg from a random woman. Sister really wanted to be related to the child she gave birth to. My nephew is my biological son, and my sister's biological nephew. She carried him the same way a surrogate would. There was a lot of good advice. It seemed about 50-50 split. I had another conversation with my sister about this past weekend and reiterated my opinion that I'm uncomfortable lying and he should know ASAP. She remains adamant in not telling him, but admitted that her feelings may change in the future. She understandably wants him to have a normal teenagehood, though I disagree that the goal justifies deception, especially at his age. I respect her decision as a parent. We're in agreement that it's her choice. So at this point, I've decided to play it safe and not tell my nephew until he's 18. However, I've written him a letter, and I plan to put it in the mail addressed to myself so that it's stamped with the date. That way, if things go south and he ever questions that I didn't want to tell him sooner, I'll have proof. I did inform my sister that she should find out his blood type. A few years ago, we went to the state fair and a blood donation center had a blood typing thing at the health pavilion. They gave us buttons that said our blood type. Both my sister and brother-in-law are type O and have a photo of their buttons on Facebook. I happen to be type A. If my nephew is not type O, he's going to have serious questions when he learns about blood types in school, if he hasn't already. So I told her to get in front of that one. I also told her that in the unlikelihood he ever comes directly to me asking questions about this, that I wasn't going to actively lie to him. I will continue to remain quiet, but I won't lie. She seemed okay with that. Finally, I informed her that when he becomes an adult, if she hadn't discussed it with him yet, then I likely will in short order. At that point, it will be a man-to-man conversation between two grown adults. While I respect my sister's parental decision, I also respect my nephew's autonomy to have the full truth of how he came to be. And I'm not going to watch him be deprived of his right to know as a grown man. To my surprise, she didn't raise any objections to this. I can only conclude that my sister simply doesn't know how to have this conversation with him, rather than that she wants to lie to him, and I can understand that. It's awkward, and she's never been the best at putting how she feels into words. I do plan on having a conversation with my brother-in-law, since, as his dad, he deserves to be in the loop on all of this, including knowing where I stand, directly from me. We have a good relationship as well. I think his input on this is important for all of us to hear as well. This is why a person should use donor sperm instead of an 18-year-old child's. This is also the reason people suffering from infertility and their donors should undergo psychological evaluations. This could have all been avoided. The sister wanted the child to be biologically related to her only. I'm assuming she couldn't have used donor sperm, or anyone else's, if she is the one who is infertile. They could have used the husband's sperm and a random egg donor so that the child was biologically linked to the husband instead, therefore avoiding this altogether, but chose to do otherwise, which I honestly can't wrap my head around. My brother-in-law had a low sperm count. They tried donor sperm, but then she had a couple of miscarriages, so they assumed she had egg issues. But I don't think they went any further. She was just really insistent that she wanted to be related to the child. I just remember her miscarriages, and she was such a mess when she was going through them. I felt terrible. So when they asked for help with the donor eggs, I didn't think twice to help when I was asked. I figured I was the only thing standing between her and the genetically related child she wanted. My mom really pushed hard on this. Long story short, she had an affair with her boss and got pregnant. It was consensual, but the fact that he was married, twice her age, and her boss creeps me out to no end. He has a son the same age as my sister. She swears that it was only a one-time affair. She also said that she does not have feelings for him, and he feels the same. She swears that he's a good guy at his core. Apparently, this is his first affair, and he regretted it as well. He is into philanthropy and seems to love his son. But no matter how good he may appear, I'm still disgusted by him. She wants to have the baby because she has severe PCOS and doesn't know if she'd ever be able to conceive again. Plus, she's always wanted to be a mom. She told the guy and he agreed to be there for her, no matter what she chose to do. She's 10 weeks along now, and both my sister and the guy are too scared to tell their families, besides my sister telling me. As someone who survived infidelity before, this situation hits too close to home, and I'm extremely disappointed in my sister. On the other hand, I realized that this man is twice her age, married, and her boss. The blame shouldn't solely be placed on her. However, I feel like an a-hole because I'm holding deep resentment towards her because of my own cheating ex-fiancé years ago. I feel like I'm projecting my issues onto her. I may have come across strong, but I questioned the sincerity of her baby daddy. I told her that she was naive and she needed to own up to what she did. Has anyone been in this situation? How do you comfort a cheater when you've survived infidelity yourself? I love my sister and wanted to be there for her, but every time I try, it just ends up in an argument. I feel like my life's a damn soap opera right now. What should I do? Inform the boss's wife. We'll see real quick what his feelings are.